Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Tunnel Vision, a show brought to you by USCFootball.com. I'm your host, Keely Orr, joined by Ryan Abraham, and we have special guest in the studio, Lawrence Jackson.
Pow.
Look at that.
That's a cool ring.
I think the best entrance so far for a special guest. We have him in the studio today. We're excited to have him. We'll talk to him, and we'll talk about some new topics that are going on in the world of USC football. One of those, will USC schedule an FCS opponent in the near future? Dun, dun, dun. Right now, USC is one of three programs that have not played an FCS program. Will that change? We'll talk about that. We're also taking live calls, 512-4-TUNNEL. We have a screener in place. We'll be taking your calls. If you have a call about the FCS, you're really passionate about it, we'll talk about that. If you want to talk to LoJack, you can call, and he'll answer your questions. And, of course, we're live on all three platforms, YouTube Live, Facebook Live, and Periscope. So if you have questions, comments, concerns, type them down there, and we will answer them. A fun show we have today. Ryan, start us off.
LoJack. Okay, so I got to see, last time I saw you, we were at the Juju Smith-Schuster event, and Keely, you were there too.
I was.
And it was funny. Keely was talking to Juju and got a picture and stuff afterwards saying, like, you were my very first video interview when she was at USC. You were our very first video, way back when we started doing video interviews. I think you were our very first one. Like, sometimes you have go-to guys. Lawrence was the go-to guy when we were there. So we were just starting. We were figuring things out, and have Lawrence was always awesome. If you know anything about him, he was a philosophy major. So it's a little different talking to him than some your typical whatever football player. But All-American at USC, national champion, first-round draft pick. He's done a lot, and really interesting story. So we appreciate you coming in.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. What you been up to, man? What's going on?
Where do you want me to start?
I know there's a lot of stuff. I know we don't have to pack all of it, but you're doing all right.
Yeah. There's two things really going on simultaneously. One is my personal entrepreneurship endeavors, where I was looking to open up an ice cream store.
Yeah. I like ice cream.
This ice cream targeting a black demographic, looking to introduce soul food ice cream, where it's a category that doesn't exist. You can look up, Vietnamese ice cream, Italian ice cream, Filipino ice cream, and they all have, things, even Mexican ice cream, right?
Oh, yeah.
But, there is no black ice cream, and a lot of people don't know that Augustus Jackson in the 1820s pioneered the method of making ice cream, and it ended up getting patented by Nancy Johnson and sold to somebody else at the height of the Industrial Revolution. So ice cream was like the biggest treat that came out of the Industrial Revolution. So that I put on pause just because it's been difficult, to get support financially. It's a big project. A lot of people are scared of some of the numbers, that are involved with it. Definitely trying to tap into the USC network. Reached out to the entrepreneurship school, Lloyd Grive, different people like that. But it's just hard, being a quote unquote first time entrepreneur, getting into the ice cream space. A lot of people don't see the vision, but the biggest thing that I'm passionate about, because it has an impact on my life, is the company SmartFit that I work for. I'm president and director of sciences, and it's a cognitive motor company. And right now we're launching in the medical space.
Okay.
Work with Alzheimer's, stroke, Parkinson's, you name it. We work with a lot of different ailments and situations, but I'm passionate about the sports vision training part of it. A lot of people don't know that sports vision training, which is training your eyes. The eyes have 8 muscles in them, and it's the least undertrained aspect of the human body, right? You go into the gym, you could, work your biceps, triceps, chest, all of that stuff, but very few guys, work their eye muscles out. And this is an opportunity where research shows that it can prevent or reduce injury and concussion by up to 80%. Acute and catastrophic injury, the awareness, it can increase performance. There's, the Air Force, they've been the foremost pioneers of vision training, and they did a study where they did 2 separate groups of pilots. The pilots that did vision training, their scores improved by 65%. The ones that didn't dropped by 69%.
Really?
So it's definitely something that I'm looking to bring to the football program at USC. We already have a system in the training room that's working on rehab, but getting the guys on there for sports performance, I think that'd be huge, especially with processing speed, different things like that. So
Interesting. Well, so when you're talking about training your eyes, what is it like? You want to improve like peripheral vision? Like what's involved in like your eye muscle train? Like when you're trying to improve your eye muscle?
yeah, so with us, it's a dual task training method. So you have a cognitive load, so you can do say multiplication, right? And the board looks like a number 9 domino. We have another one that's 3 by 3, so it's 9 targets, and there's different challenges, right? So if it's 5 times 2, you hit that, and then the other targets populate, and you have to find the right number.
Okay.
Right, and you can do it on a Bosu ball. You can do it from peripheral position.
Oh, okay.
You could set up the pods and do like the DB drills where they backpedal and burst out.
So you're doing something football, but you're also like trying to find something
exactly.
on a grid. Okay.
And it basically, sports is tactical-based decision making. It's the second most rigorous activity on the eyes outside of warfare, and so it's. On a scientific level, it's a whole new area that a lot of people aren't aware of. And I'm working with the great Dr. Vernon Williams at Kerlin Jobe and the ophthalmologist at SC, Dr. Flowers, and they call it the optimal performance gap, right? Where you have the biomechanical side of training that we've pretty much maxed out, with the new methods and stuff. But now it's the neurological training that actually has more of an impact on performance, right? Where a lot of people don't understand that every movement that you make has to be processed. And so on the football field, before you make a skilled motor movement, you have to visualize it. 80% of your input comes from your visual system. So
Okay.
it's a huge field, and it has, like I said, the opportunity to reduce concussions as well as
That's really interesting.
concussion recovery. And
How does it do that? Like with your improved vision, how does like prevent blows through your head?
Well, if you think of like a fighter craft and object avoidance systems, a lot of people on the field with their ability to focus say, you got the play, you got your assignment, you got the formation, you have all these things that you need to focus on. And so they call it breadth of attention. If you don't know a lot, it's like you see the field like this.
Okay.
Right? But the more you open up your processing capacity, you start to see more. So you're not likely to be in a position to run into one of your own teammates.
Okay.
You're not in a position where they call it the startle effect, where female soccer players have, I think, I want to say something about like 91% concussion rate or something like that. It's the most of any sport, but it happens because when they go and do a header, they close their eyes, right?
Oh.
And so this it slows down time, and it gives you the ability to see what you're hitting, and it gives you the ability to process your movement strategies a lot more efficiently.
Interesting. No, that's all. Just kind of like if you ever walk around a mall and there's like a little kid, they have no like spatial awareness.
Right,
They'll
right,
just
right.
run into you and
Right,
stuff.
right.
Like this is the same sort of thing, I think, where you just need to be aware. Like you're going to try to hit that hole as a running back, but you're going to maybe move over this way a little bit to avoid contact, things like that.
Right. And a lot of it is being able to, have to be able to infer, right, to predict. Like the human brain is based on predicting the future in a sense. And so if you're a running back, you have several things that you have to think about. How fast you're getting to the line of scrimmage. You're looking at the linebackers. You're looking at your linemen. You're looking at your cutback potential and different things like that. But you're doing all of that like that, right? And so
you have to like anticipate where
Right.
these people are going to be going.
Exactly. So there's 17 visual skills that's needed to excel in reading, learning, and sports. And Larry Fitzgerald is a huge believer in sports vision training. It's just one of those things. It's a nascent industry, and you have a lot of focus on the player tracking analytics, different things like that. But if the player tracking works so well, then why do you continuously have superstar players getting hurt?
Yeah.
And so there has to be a different level. And research shows that vision training is it. It's just something that has to pick up and get over the tipping point.
I thought, like, when you talk about player evaluation, we get to do a lot of that. Oh, one real quick thing. When you're on the sideline, and like Keeler and I are shooting video or photos on the sideline, they tell us, and one of you guys are running at us, they tell us not to move because usually the athlete's going to have a better chance of just, they know where they're going to avoid us. So if we then they might you cut the same way. So we're trained to not like screw up your, you guys are going to figure it out as you're running towards the sideline. But for like a quarterback, you talk about, he's got arm strength, he's this tall, blah, 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 whatever. To me, like, vision is a big part of it. Just being able to see the field and being able to know and have a feeling that this guy running whatever routes over here, he's going to get open, or that looks like it's going to get congested over there. Like, is that part of it where, like, performance-based as far as, like, quarterbacks go and other positions?
Oh, 100%. You look at, I'll start with Peyton Manning and Drew Brees, right? Those are elite level quarterbacks. And so they're able to manipulate the defense. They have the play. They know what defense the defense is in, and they have the ability to check out, say, like the safety's foot. Oh, his heel is up. He's doing this, right?
Okay.
And so there's a task pyramid.
It's like the safety way over there, his heel's up. I know where he's going.
Right.
Wow, that's good.
There's a task pyramid in sports, and with dual tasking, if you have two tasks in front of you, they say that if you master the first task, then you'll be able to devote more energy to the second task, and the first task will become more automatic, right?
Okay.
And so Tom Brady is an excellent example. He openly talks about vision training. He uses an app called Brain HQ, right? Tom Brady is getting younger mentally. He's processing the game at a faster speed than everybody else, right? You want to be like Tom Brady.
That makes sense.
do vision training. So he's able to anticipate. He's able to make throws that other people can't make. He's able to stay calm under pressure because he's playing a completely different game than everybody's playing, because he's training his brain to process faster and to react faster and to see more of the field than other players. So, I mean, to me, that's his biggest advantage. And if other quarterbacks in the league stepped it up and did vision training, you might see their performance increase.
Yeah. So, Lawrence Jackson doing cool stuff. So
really cool stuff.
This is pretty unique. Like, get like this kind of talk on television, probably a lot of shows where you're like, let's talk about football. Like, that's why it was always fun. See, Keely, I wish you were around back then. It was fun. This is the kind of conversation you could have with Lawrence. You're like, we do this, do that, but let's talk about philosophers and stuff. He'll get in. I don't get any of that stuff, but he gets into that stuff.
Fun stuff. Now, a little behind the scenes. So when he first came in, we were talking about FCS, and we said that USC might play FCS program in the future. And your face, Lawrence, when you heard that was just so funny. I mean, what does it mean for the Trojan tradition to play at a higher level and play hard opponents?
Well, it's one thing that I took pride in, especially being in the NFL. You run into guys who played at Alabama, played at Texas, all of that stuff. And it's like, dude, you played against Citadel. You played against North Dakota State. And then they get their, rankings higher because they blow people out and stuff like that. I took pride personally in never playing a team that wasn't up to par, right? You had the Idaho game, but it was the Coach Holt thing pretty much going there. Hawaii was a lesser competition, but they had the quarterback that was pretty good. But my first game ever was against Virginia Tech, and it was the Black Coaches Association game.
Yeah.
And
in Maryland, right?
Yeah, Maryland. Yeah. And I was scared to death. So many people, such a big game, starters, seniors, different things like that. And that's an experience that really took me a long way over the next 51 games is being able to see elite level competition from the get-go, right? So for me, I got my first true sack during Pac-10 play versus Stanford. By the time we got to Stanford, I already had experience to where the play style was different. Players were stronger, some were faster, different things like that. So when I got into the Pac-10, it was more of a breeze. You compare it to the guys you practice with, and that's always, that's especially under Pete, in and of itself is a game, right? But then you go into the regular season having faced, teams from other conferences like Arkansas. We played those guys twice, and they had.
You guys scored like 1,000 points.
Right.
It was like 70-7.
Yeah,
Or
it was a
like
basketball
ridiculous.
score.
Yeah.
And then we played Nebraska at home and out there. And those were great games for us. Not only is it a lot of memories, right, but it's something that you could take pride in.
Yeah. So that's the issue. So the FCS or whatever it was, Division I AA, came around in I believe 1978, and over the years, like teams have, a lot of teams have played FCS programs. What Steve Lopes told Antonio Morales from the Athletic, and this was in his story, was essentially USC wants to try to make the college football playoff, and that to do that they want to have 7 home games every year. The issue with that is because you play in the Pac-12 and there's a 9-game conference schedule, and USC plays Notre Dame every year, it's essentially you have 10 games that are already decided. That's 5 home and 5 away because Notre Dame is the opposite. So there's either 4 home Pac-12 games or 5 home Pac-12 games and 4 or 5 road games, and then Notre Dame fills in that other one. So 10 of your 12 games are taken. You only have 2 spots left. If you want 7 home games every year, that means those 2 games have to be home games. You can't really schedule a home and home with Arkansas or Nebraska because you don't have an extra road game you can throw in there. So if that's going to be their philosophy going forward, you're not going to see any of those home and home things going forward. And he made mention that you could end up playing an FCS school. And our buddy Michael Castillo pointed out the last time USC scheduled a home and home, and I didn't even realize this, 2010 when they scheduled Texas. And now that series is now over. They do have an opening in 2021 where you're seeing a lot of schools already, filling these things out. Michael wrote that there's only 3 schools that he saw that has an opening that USC could play that year. Northwestern, which they're not going to just come out to the Coliseum and not do a home and home because they're Power 5. And then UNLV, who USC had played last year, and Middle Tennessee State. So that's the only options. Now for USC, they needed to schedule this 5 years ago. Like, this is more, to me, this is more of an issue. Like, hey, if that was your philosophy, that's fine. But that means you got to schedule these group of 5 schools 5 years ago. Now, you might be forced into scheduling an FCS school or try to get someone to come out of a game or something. And Dan Weber got on this. I think it's one of those things where it's a sense of pride. You've never played an FCS school. And the 2 other teams that haven't done it are Notre Dame and UCLA. You're arch rivals. So not only if you do that, now you're like falling, below your arch rivals. Does it mean something to you? Like it means something to a lot of the fans. Some fans don't care, but a lot of the fans seem like they care about it.
Yeah, I mean, it means a lot to me for sure. Not just the fact that UCLA and Notre Dame have never played FCS schools. I think that you look at the broader picture of the success that we're going after, right? You want to make the playoffs. It's not about scheduling FCS teams. It's about fielding a great team and playing with discipline and getting wins within conference, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think the Pac-10 or the Pac-12 is necessarily a tough conference, right? Stanford had, its run there, whatever. There's a couple of teams that, Oregon here and there, every now and then they'll be good, they're not good. So I think that if SC played SC football, and dominated the Pac-12 and set their sights on the Rose Bowl, like Pete Carroll talked about, owning the Rose Bowl, I think that's how you get into the playoffs. I don't think that you necessarily, take a step down and play an inferior opponent.
Yeah.
We, especially under Coach Carroll, we took pride in that in the sense of we wanted to beat teams. We didn't want to play teams to get style points and different things like that. If we had a chance to, play the whole game out and score 60 points, then that's what we did. But to risk injury on an inferior opponent, that you already know is inferior just because they don't have the size, they don't have the speed, the strength, the coaching, different things like that. I think that that's, it's a wasted opportunity. And, now with the playoff system, they're able to take more things into consideration,
Yeah.
right? And so,
There's a committee there, yeah.
Right,
yeah.
right. So if you look at that and it comes down to USC versus this school, it could come down to the fact that we played FCS schools that another school gets in.
Yeah.
And I think that with SC, tradition is everything. It's a super, super traditional historic program. And I don't like the idea of, stepping down to a lower tier quality of play just to get, 7 home games or a potential, playoff berth.
Yeah, no, I think you're 100% right. I think the 7 home games, it's nice to want that, but I feel the reason they're giving isn't correct. They haven't really done everything else, like with the playoffs in mind. They haven't hired administrative people or coaches or anyone like, hey, these are someone that we know are going to get us to the playoff. They haven't really done that. I don't think the scheduling would do that either. I agree with you. The way USC is going to get the benefit of the doubt a lot of times. If the year USC went to the Rose Bowl, 2016, you're 1-3, and you get to the Rose Bowl. Like, not a lot of programs could do that.
Right.
If USC wins, they're going to get the benefit of the doubt. They'll be up there.
Right.
Pete Carroll got the national championships with 6 home games. That's not. I don't think we've seen because of 6 home games that USC is not going to be able to make a playoff. I think that's bull. But I feel like what USC is doing, they want 7 home games for revenue purposes and maybe padding the stats a little bit where, you get that extra win instead of like going on the road and losing to Texas, you beat Portland State or something. Maybe that looks a little bit better, but that's not going to make the fans feel better, and it's not going to help, I think, the overall strength of schedule too. So if USC was doing everything in their power to try to make the playoffs and they were like this close, that's one thing. But you're talking about like a 5-7 team, and they haven't hired well. They haven't really shown like the dedication that you want to make the playoffs. So this just seems like kind of a lame excuse. And it sort of seems like they're setting it up like, hey, we're going to do this. We're just sort of putting this out there just to ease the blow when the email comes out that says, new schedule coming in.
Right.
Eastern Washington is now on the schedule for 2021. You're like, oh, man.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a disappointing day, for all the Trojan fans out there if we do get to a point where we schedule a FCS team. I know the business side of it, 7 home games, more revenue, all of this stuff, but you also have to take into account the ticket sales haven't been what they've been, in years past. So just because you add 2 more home games, how many people are going to come to those games?
Yeah.
Right? How much revenue is that truly going to add to the bottom line? So you do have to keep the business aspect of it in mind, but when you're talking about a team that's in a seemingly a perpetual rebuild state, right? It's about confidence. I'd rather go down and play a Texas team and lose, but play well, than to blow out a team that everybody knows you should beat from the get-go, right? There's so many different elements of preparation, of actual in-game experience that you get playing tough teams that you don't get elsewhere. And, with the quarterback, him starting as a freshman, I loved it. As a former player and alum, it's like I would rather take 3 years of him knowing what it feels like to get his butt kicked, versus not having that experience. So he can only grow, from that, as opposed to, expecting us to win, 8, 9, 10 games when you lose a slew of players that were pivotal. It is unfortunate that sports has a cyclical, turnover.
Sure.
Right. And it's just something that we have to deal with. I know that the past couple of years, a lot of the former players have been outspoken about Clay Helton, about some of the losses, all of that stuff. Hey, it's football, and like I tell guys that I play with, you miss tackles, you've missed 4th down conversions, you drop balls, I've missed sacks. So who are we, to criticize this team? We lost to UCLA in 2006 for a chance to go to the national championship.
13-9.
Right? The offense only scored a single touchdown.
Carl Durrell.
Right,
That's
right.
the biggest feather of his cap.
And so it's tough to kind of criticize as a former player, but I like what's going on in terms of a deeper level with the program.
Yeah.
Whether or not it's translating to on-field success, there's a lot of factors that contribute to that, but I think that Coach Helton is doing as good a job as he can, with the circumstances. And, people have to remember after Lane and after Sark, SC wasn't an attractive job, especially coming off the sanctions and stuff like that. So it's going to take a while before we get back to that level of bringing in recruits that really want the chance to be great. With Pete, when he was recruiting us, I'll speak on myself in particular, he talked about the history of the school, right? The ability to come and turn things around.
Yeah.
If you want to be remembered, if you want to be a legend, be great at USC. And so I think
good selling point.
right.
Yeah.
And so I think that the lure of SC isn't the same, and I think that it started long ago when we lost to Texas, right? We weren't that unbeatable team anymore. We didn't have that aura of dominance after that. Teams weren't scared of us. And I think when you look at it now, to other people, SC is just another game on the schedule. They feel like they have a chance to beat us every week, and it's not just on coaching. Like I tell some of the players, unless y'all play the perfect game, you can't blame the coaches.
Yeah.
The coaches put y'all in a situation. You miss a block, you miss a tackle, you miss a coverage, that's on you. We could talk about the coach all we want to, but players have a responsibility as well. If every single player does his assignment, every single play, the best that they can do, then we should win.
Yeah.
And if you look at the film and the coaches can say, hey, you didn't do this right, you didn't do that right, and I respect the coaches for not throwing, kids under the bus, and that's what fans should really look at on a deeper level. The real reasons why we're losing and haven't been as successful, the fans won't hear it. That's closed door conversation, So I think that, we have a ways to go, but we still are in position because we're USC.
All right, some hot takes from Lawrence.
Yeah, we actually have a live caller.
Okay, cool.
So I'm going to go to them. They've been waiting for a while, so thank you for your patience. I think we have Jamie on the line. Hello?
Yes. Hey, how's it going? Right on.
Hi, what's your question?
I just, listening to that last take, what are some of the things, get Lauren Jackson's opinion on what we can do to change this atmosphere completely? I mean, I just heard you speak on Clay Helton, and it's not all coaching. What are some other things that we can do to bring this program around? I mean, I'm in enemy territory here in Alabama, so I want USC to be great again.
Jamie, thanks for calling from Alabama. Nice.
Right. Thank you. I think that the biggest thing that I notice about the program is Pete did a great job of recruiting in the inner city. You had a lot of players that came from a lot of schools where you had to show grit and you had to show toughness. Now, high school football's changed. The way the kids come in have changed. The egos, the perception, the idea of USC and getting a scholarship, that's changed. When I got the scholarship, they were coming off the 6-6 season where they lost to Utah, I believe, in the Vegas Bowl. And I committed in the summer before the Orange Bowl run. But I think the key to turning the program around is getting great players, and great players that want to play at a great university regardless of the circumstances. All it takes is one or two or three, players to turn the entire team around. You look at what Reggie Bush and Lindell were able to do, right? You look at what Steve Smith was able to do. When you look at it like that, there's tons of opportunity to get better, but I think the key is recruiting, and I think a lot of kids, unfortunately, are shying away from SC, not only because of fan criticism, right, but media criticism. Everything looks like the school is in turmoil from a football perspective. So if I'm a young athlete and I want to go, pro, why would I want to go to a school where the fans are bashing the coach don't know if he's going to be here, everybody's bashing the athletic director. It doesn't seem like it's any cohesion, but key to returning the dominance and getting that vibe back is getting the players that's hungry. When we played, I learned from Kenneth Udeze, Mike Patterson, Sean Cody.
Yeah.
My senior year when I was coming to the games, I was watching Troy Polamalu, Carson Palmer. They were setting the tone. Justin Fargas, a lot of stuff like that. But the key is recruiting, and I think that it's bigger than the coach. Coaches are rentals, right? You don't know if the coach. Look at Cliff, right? He was here, and then he
35
was
day rental.
Right. But I think that as players, it's about going to a school where you're gonna get an education, right? SC is a great education. The alumni base, for all intent and purposes, it's fairly well. It's a family. If you make an effort, they make an effort. Everything's not going to work out, but, you have access and connections, and then you have a chance to be a legend. It's a 125-year-old program, right? Like, who wouldn't want to be a part of that?
Yeah.
And so I think that to get across the fact that it's an honor to wear the cardinal and gold, right? That's the most important thing. And if recruits are scared of, not just competition, but adversity, they may not be the right ones for the school.
All right.
Good answer.
Thanks, Jamie.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie, for the call. We appreciate it. You talked about practices under Pete Carroll, and that's something that we kind of talk about USC's practicing and how they practice currently. Can you describe what practices were like as a former player?
Yeah, it was worse than a game. I mean, for me, I can tell you my redshirt freshman year, I got shifted to the strong side defensive end. So if I'm in a 5 technique, the two people I had to go against was Deuce Latui and Alex Holmes.
Yeah.
You better bring your hard hat and your work belt right there.
Deuce was a beast, yeah.
Deuce was a beast. And to go against Sam Baker every day, for Cedric to go against Ryan Khalil every day, that made us better. For the running backs to go against the linebackers that we had, that made us better. But the way we practice ones-on-ones, 2s versus 2s, different things like that, it put us in a situation where once we got into the game, our athletes were superior to the other team's athletes. So it's like, we get a chance to execute the game plan on these guys, and Pete did a great job of teaching the fundamentals of the game in the sense where everybody was locked in and ready to play. But practice, those were some of the hardest days of college.
Yeah, that's one of the big criticisms, I guess, from a lot of the fans. It's, football's changed since then. You're not seeing a lot of like Oklahoma drills or things like that. I actually read something the NFL might ban doing Oklahoma drills and some other drills. Or
they do Oklahoma drills in the NFL?
I don't know. Maybe like I read something like a tweet or something about it today.
You cut me. I ain't doing no Oklahoma drill.
But there's been some criticism of practices not maybe being as tough, and I think that's one of the. It's kind of a cliche, like, we want to make practices, harder than games. I think you guys did do that. I think sometimes we've seen in more of the modern USC teams, they've talked about that, but when you watch it, it doesn't really look like that.
Right.
It doesn't look like that. It doesn't look like that's harder than a game.
Right. And I think that started with the sanctions, right? When the scholarship count got reduced and you had players that were able to transfer without penalty, we got really dinged on the depth, right? I remember going back to 2006, we didn't have, it was just me and Alex Morrow at defensive end, the strong side. And so I went down in spring ball, and we had to switch the defense up because we had more linebackers than we had defensive ends. And so that's how we ended up running a pseudo 3-4 package that he runs in Seattle right now. But I think that, with Lane and Sark dealing with that time period kind of set an artificial tone of what was expected from practice. And I think that in rebuilding, the quality of the depth, you have to be concerned about player safety. So when you have All-Americans as second and third string, yeah, you could practice super hard, but Coach Helton doesn't have that luxury, so they have to find ways to be able to get the hard practice in and the tough plays in when it matters. But if you only have a few players who can play at a high caliber, then you have to watch the safety of the team.
So we have questions for you on social media, so I'll start asking you those. HR Picking Stuff on YouTube says, I'd like to ask Mr. Jackson, does he see anyone on this current defensive line that could play on the Pete Carroll teams?
Ooh. Have you been into the you might not have been in the roster that much.
I haven't been into the roster that much, but I have to admit that just the style of defense, that they play, they haven't switched back to a 4-3, have they?
No.
Yeah.
They in spring they did a few more 4-down lineman kind of things,
Right.
but it's still mostly that kind of base.
Yeah, that's something that I completely don't like. I'm a 4-3 guy. I love to see 6'4" to 6'5" defensive ends, 6'3" to 6'4" defensive tackles, things like that. So, not to say that these guys aren't quality players. It's just that they're asked to do different things than we were asked to do. Our defense was predicated on, being one gap attacking. I know the past couple of years, the 3 down linemen have been more re-rolls as opposed to attacking. And so that hinders, a player's performance and his impact on the field. So you really don't get a true example of how good the player is because the scheme and what they have to do. So I know that a lot of the linebackers, especially the outside linebackers, a lot of those guys get a chance to make a lot of plays, but not a lot of people could play D-line under Coach Carroll. It was that was a position where,
and at Orgeron,
right. You really had to be a special player. Not only to handle the coaches, but to handle the fact that there were people behind you ready to take your spot if you mess up.
Yeah, you might like it. So they did look, sometimes you'd have a Jay Tufele or a Brandon Peely in the middle, and Marlon Tuipulotu would mix in there. But you saw some Connor Murphy, who's 6'7", the big, kid. We haven't seen much of him yet, but I think he looked pretty good in the spring. And then Christian Rector, I think, could have a big year on the other side. So that did look more like, a 4-man, more of what you guys would see on a 4-man front. It's kind of more of a 4-2-5 they would play a lot. I don't know how much they're going to play of that, but we did get to see a bunch of that. Because they have better depth in the front 7 and the defensive line than, especially right now, even the secondary.
Right. And I mean, that'll go a long way, I think, towards the team's success, being more in a 4-3, 4-down lineman, type of look. I personally hate 3-4 look. Yeah, it drives me crazy. I think football is 4-3 defense and I formation on offense and shotgun.
Probably not going to see that this year.
Yeah.
Keely, do you feel like they did more?
Yeah, they showed it. They showed more. There's definite packages of that. But we saw a lot of experimentation in spring, which
just
makes
not sure how much we're going to see in games,
Yeah, it seemed like spring was a time for Clancy Pendergast to kind of try out a lot of different personnel, a lot of packages, and then I'm curious to see what actually sticks in fall. So it's kind of TBD right now.
Yeah.
We have a Facebook question for you. Mike Connolly says, "Lo Jack, thanks for being on the show. What was your favorite accomplishment while at USC?"
Ooh.
Oh, man. Outside of graduating.
I was going to say, you're going to say graduating.
Yeah, I think
I know
that. Outside of graduating, it was playing in all 52 games, starting 51, and winning, I want to say 46. Games or
it's pretty close.
Yeah, so,
something like that. Yeah.
I take great pride in knowing that this is such a historical program, and nobody's won more games as a starter than me. And then also having my jersey sold in a bookstore and still being able to go back to games and see fans wearing a number 96 jersey, that means a lot to me because, it's not like a number 55 where you don't know who they're representing. If you see a 96 jersey, that's Lo Jack. So definitely that. And, starting 51 to 52 games in the Pete Carroll era, I think was something that will always – be near and dear to my heart because I've seen a lot, I've been through a lot, and I have a lot of great memories from that.
You switched to 94 in the NFL, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 94.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And your Twitter's 94.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
From
yeah.
Detroit.
Right, yeah.
So I know you had some ankle issues, but playing in 52 games, did you have a secret to how you got out there so much?
Well, football is a painful sport. I think that with the ankle issues, I had 2 surgeries. My freshman year taught me a lot about pain. I knew that I would have to get surgery at the end of the season, but I chose to participate in the season because I felt like I can give the offense a great look on scout team. I ended up getting service team player of the year on defense that year when we was it 2003 when we played Michigan in the Rose Bowl?
Yeah.
I think we had the #1 offense.
Was it 2003 season? Yeah, I think it was 2003 season. Yeah.
But a lot of it is mental fortitude, not really letting your body dictate what's going on. There's plenty of games. The Oregon game where I had my first 3 sacks of the season, I sprained my ankle running out the tunnel. There's a pothole in the middle of it. I'm getting everybody hyped, right? And then I run out, my freaking ankle hits the side. And so if you go back and watch the game, one of the first plays, Jonathan Stewart takes a handoff and comes to our left. And he cuts back, and I had the tackle, right? But I missed because I couldn't stop right on a dime.
yeah.
And you see me go out, and I had to get my ankle retaped and spatted and all of that. So that's one of my favorite moments because my cousin passed away the week before.
Oh, wow.
And we played Stanford, and Christo Bruce had 5 sacks the week before we played them. Here I am deep into the season after having 10 sacks, not having any. I'm thinking I'm going to have a field day. I ain't even sniffed the quarterback, And so to come back, and play in honor of my cousin, one of the reasons why I really got into football, and I had my first 3 sacks, but knowing that I did that with a hurt ankle before the game even started, that was something that I'll always remember.
Real quick, Keely, the pain thing, when we talk to former players, that seems to be, I think that's something maybe the fans understand the least, how much pain you guys go through just to go through a season. And you see players that were like retired, but like, could you come back like a year later? And some people will just be like, you don't understand how much that hurts. Like like physically maybe, but like there's so much pain involved. I can't like mentally get ready to go back and put my body through that again.
Right.
Just that you might be able to physically perform whatever your tasks are, but there's so much pain involved. Did you feel like there was just a painful experience all the time? Or
I've heard every single part of my body. Torn ligaments in my wrist, my elbow, torn ligaments in my fingers. Sprained MCL, sprained my PCL, had ankle issues, groin strains, quad contusions, just a ton of stuff,
And like regular just aches and pain, like just, this is a little sore,
right,
like something like that.
Right. And you learn quickly there's a difference between being hurt and being injured. You sign up for football to play through pain, right? And I had a philosophy where in practice, you're going to get 100% from me. But today, my 100% might only be 70%, but you're going to get 100% of that 70% that I got.
Because that's all you got.
That's all I got. We could talk about it after practice, but I'm giving you all I got. I'm hurting, So I think that's the key is just, blocking out the pain. But it's not something that is for the faint of heart. The worst thing as a defensive lineman is to hurt your thumb.
Oh.
That is like the biggest pain in the butt because you're using your hands every single play, right? So once that thumb gets, jacked up, oh my gosh, you got to wear the tape, the plaster around it, all of that stuff. And it's sensitive, to the touch. But, even in college, you're a professional athlete in the sense of it's your job to perform, right? So the coach doesn't care if you have a little boo-boo. Yeah. I remember one time in training camp, I woke up at like 4:30 in the morning to a massive nosebleed, right? My nose bled until like 7:30, 8 o'clock.
Oh, my God.
And so I go to the training room. I'm like, Russ, I ain't practicing today,
I lost
man.
a lot of blood.
Yeah, I lost a lot of blood, right? He's like, hey, man, you got to go talk to Pete, right? And I'm like, come on, dude. And so this is like my third time sitting in Pete's office. And he tells me a story about, a three-legged dog that doesn't know he has three legs. So he's like running around, right? And so he made me practice, but I was so upset. You can ask some of the guys like Terrell and Keith Rivers. On the way out to practice, I was hitting myself in the nose to
make it bleed
make
again?
it bleed again. So I'm in the huddle. I have blood all over my face. They're like, come on, LJ, man, wipe that stuff off. I'm like, nah, they want me to practice, so y'all going to see all the blood.
That's amazing.
That's so good. Did your I'm sorry, you probably have something, Keely, but
No, you're good.
one of the things when you see about football players in pain, and you talk about the thumbs, a lot of fingers get. Your fingers survived? Like, are they all right, or is it mostly?
My finger survived. I think that this finger,
That pinky's a little off. Okay.
Yeah, I could kind of do the little sideways thing with it, and like the tip of the knuckle here, where I forget what it's called, but where you have like the drop mallet finger.
Oh, okay.
I've had mallet finger probably on, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Are they from like dislocations, or is it like?
Well, mallet finger is when you tear the extensor muscle, or the ligament on top, where it allows you the ability to do that. So it just basically it's
stuck there.
like this, and you have to wear a brace every day for like 6 weeks, so the muscle or the ligament can reattach itself and rebuild. But for the most part, my hands are.
That's all right. Because so many football players, like I've playing different sports, popped whatever the joints out. You have to kind of pop it back in, but they're a little, but it's still okay. Like it's not. But I've seen when we were at this event. So the Juju Smith event. This is where So I think his Anthony Munoz. I think he's right here.
I was about to say.
Yeah, when he was up on the podium, Keely and I were like right near, and one of his fingers was like sideways.
He was like talking, and his pinky was just like 5 inches away from
Yeah,
his hand, and I was like, "Wow."
His pinky is in a different universe. Like Pluto.
I think Pete Carroll has like something like that too, like one of his hands, like I think one of his, But that's like, but I don't know what that could possibly be, because like I mean I don't know, it's probably way worse injuries than what I've had, but like when you pop them out, if you pop them back in, I don't know what happens. I mean, Ronnie Lott cut his finger off in the middle of a game.
Yeah.
Like it's like fingers are like it's like hockey players and teeth. Like football players and fingers just seem to kind of just go by the wayside. Whatever.
Right. I'm lucky that I haven't had any disconfiguration of my fingers like some of the guys, especially Munoz. He earned that finger.
I mean, out of a Hall of Famer stuff, but just like there must have been so many. It's probably just been you have to have injured it like over and over and over again. I think,
right.
And played
but
through
why
it.
not fix it though?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know.
I get that thing fixed.
Same with the hockey players. Like what like they just it's like a pride like to have toothless grins. Like dude, go get that fixed.
So we actually have a live caller.
All right.
And they've been on the line for 10 minutes. So thank you,
Sorry.
Mike. Yeah, for being on the line. Mike, hello.
Hi, good evening, guys. How are you?
Hi. What's your question?
Yes, I have a question/comment for your guest here tonight. First of all, thank you for taking the time out to speak with us. I appreciate that, or give us some insight. But my question and/or comment is regarding recruiting. He was mentioning about 20, 30 minutes ago, and he said that the success on the field has to do with recruiting. It's tied in recruiting. I'd like to know what his views are. Of course, as I'm sure he's been following our recruiting cycle. We've had the top 10, and I believe a top 2 or 3 recruiting class while Helton's been around, or he's taken one over from Sark. What's his view on that? I mean, we are and we're getting the top tier recruits, but as we know, game in, game out, Helton continuously gets exposed during the games. Where teams adjust to us and we don't adjust to them. Prime example like the Texas game. So what's his view on that? That we are getting the recruits, but it's just coaching, and it's the failure of the coaches which stops us from going to the next level. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Well, thank you, Mike, for the question. I think that the one thing that you're missing is you can have a top 10 class on paper, but that doesn't mean you have a top 10 class on the field, right? When you look at guys like Adoree Jackson, Juju, those guys could have played with us, right? Those are the type of players that we had in abundance.
Yeah.
And so getting difference makers like that, where they have a chip on their shoulder, they have an edge to them, they have ill intentions, for the opponents, right?
The opponent's fingers.
Right. I love the way that Juju and Adoree played. I was sad when they left, but every recruit doesn't pan out. You have guys who look like Tarzan play like Jane. That's a big thing that, people always talk about. You got guys who, have a high ranking because they played in a division or they played football where it wasn't a lot of competition or a lot of great competition. So when you get into an environment where you have players that are better, I personally believe in getting players from public schools, right? Like public school football players and basketball players are a little bit different, than private school and some of these better off schools, right? We're a little bit more raw. You have to teach us some technique, but the grit that guys have from public schools, especially in the inner city, is a lot different. Where most of our, recent years, the top players that we've had come from Sarah. Sarah is a hotbed of talent in, the Inglewood area, Glendale, Lawndale, where if you're good, you're going to Sarah.
Yeah.
And
you're not ending up at the public schools much anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that with some of the recruits, the expectations are high based off of how they performed in high school. But the reality is when you stack them up against, competition that's equal or better, it's a mismatch in the sense that, and you also have to remember, a lot of players who would have come to SC when Pete was coaching, they've gone to other schools. They've gone to the Oregons, they've gone out of state, different things like that. And we're seeing a lot of those players that we should have, on our team, players from LA that are dominant players that are going to other schools. Something that I don't, understand, one bit. And I don't think that has to do with, coaching or anything. If you have a chance to play at home in LA and you're going to live in LA, once you're done playing, why would you go to school in Oregon? Why would you go to school in Washington? Why would you go all the way? I hate seeing kids go, to Miami, to Florida, to sit on a bench.
Yeah.
It's like, stay at home.
And now there's a transfer portal. We had Gavin Smith in last week, and he talked about that sometimes. Like, we'll see those guys soon in the transfer portal. Like that's a common thing now, where you go far away for school and you don't like it, and you transfer back.
Exactly. So I think that with the recruiting, I would personally go after more public school, kids, definitely more kids from the inner city. Sarah, Long Beach Poly, they notoriously produce great players every year. But I think you have to take a risk on those players, but also it's the players' responsibilities at those schools to have the grades and the test scores to get in. And I think that that's where a lot of the balls are being dropped, with some of these recruits that we could get from the inner city and public schools. But I really think that the recruiting, it comes down to getting guys who, have toughness, who've been through some stuff. Pete did a great job of finding those types of guys.
Yeah.
Very nice. Thanks, Mike, for the call. We appreciate it. We have a question, or not really a question, but a comment from Dominique. He says, waiting on that Lawrence Jackson philosophy book. And then someone else said, I'd read it. So if you ever into writing books, you have an audience.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely thought about it. There's one that I like to get working on. It's called Zen and the Art of Being a Good Teammate. Working on a book about SC right now, talking about my experience being a recruit and seeing Coach Carroll come in, going 6-6, being a local kid, and just the philosophy of the program and what made us who we were. And I'm going to get back into blogging a little bit. I think, with the concussion settlement, all of that stuff, going on, they look at a lot of different things, and they're really chicken shit. Excuse my language.
Okay.
But,
No
you
FCC
know,
on
yeah,
they, internet broadcast.
You know, it's one of those things where I had to, slow my writing down and all of that because they use that against me. You know what I mean? And my concussion settlement, the fact that like I tweet, different things like that. It's like, dude, the medical records clearly show that I have a 1.5 diagnosis or level 2 diagnosis, but the fact that I can speak well, or the fact that I can still write, doesn't mean that I don't suffer, from the behavioral issues. I tweeted a while ago, that I attempted suicide in January. That was culmination of a lot of things, but, for me, getting to the point now where, I'm much more balanced and, I'm closer to God and I have an understanding about life, it is time to, start writing and different things like that. There's a bunch of stuff that I'm passionate about. I have a poetry book that, I haven't put out yet. Tons of ideas, different things like that. But I'm definitely looking forward to sharing more of myself as an intellectual, with the world. I consider myself a philosopher, and, in that I should read every day and I should write something every day, so I'm trying to get back to that. And, hopefully I'll put, a book out sometime in the near future regarding, philosophy. I have one outlined, but, I haven't really started on it.
But I mean, you mentioned that. I mean, with the the tweets and stuff from January. Like, how are you doing? I mean, it's you've talked about depression and stuff before, and the CTE stuff coming off of football. I mean, I know you were newly married. I mean, everything seemed really happy, and from the outside, it's like you're like, wow. What's going on?
What happened?
Yeah. Like, it's hard to like put your arms around sometimes.
Right. I think that it was a confluence of a lot of events. I've been on it, journey for the past 5-6 years, as an entrepreneur, as a man developing, and I made a choice to commit to a lifestyle of giving back, and putting myself in position to help the community. I consider myself an activist. I've spent a good amount of money on, various ideas. One was crushed fruit in a pouch, right? Where I thought that that's something with the fast pace of life. It's, it's still a trend, right? But the company didn't survive. And, with Milk and Soul, the ice cream store, just the pressure of not getting, the support. You go through so many different things with that, and then when you have a different floor mentally and emotionally, right, it's a lot harder to handle. And I think for me, I'm just now understanding what the real world is like. I had no idea it was like this. It's like people are different than what I expected. Things happen differently, than you expect. Playing it and football, you're in this bubble for seemingly for years, and you come out of it, it's like, hey, like what's going on here?
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of pressure, and internally, it was one of those things where whenever I get to the point of suicidal thoughts, it's usually based around the fact that I've lived the life that I wanted to live originally. I wanted to play football, different things like that. So, I felt like I had permission to take my own life, and when you're in that much pain and when you're suffering, you don't think about, who's going to be hurt, all of that stuff. My wife, she was dropping our daughter off at school. She get a call from my mom like, yo, we taking him to the hospital. You know what I mean? And so for her, it was a complete shock. She, going over there, hanging out with her sisters, then she gets a message that her husband tried to kill him, kill himself. So it was a tough period, and it wasn't just one thing. It's a culmination of a lot of things, you know. But yeah, you know, seemingly at the best time, you know, of my life, I was at a low point internally, but it was all my perspective, you know. So I found faith in the fact that what I'm trying to do in the community and for the community is something positive, right? I look at Malcolm X, Dr. King, um, all the other historical leaders. Um, I can't think of some of their names. I want to say them so bad right now. But Philip A. Randolph, who created the original Million Man March, you know,
Okay.
just the history of black culture in America, and we're the number one consumers. Between now and 2050, we're set to give out $50 trillion to non-black owned companies.
Really?
Yeah, you know,
Didn't know
we
that,
have
yeah.
we have a 98% outgoing purchase power. So, you know, I call myself, you know, following the inspiration from quotes. You know, they say if you believe it, then you could achieve it. You know, so I actually tried it.
Yeah.
You know, and shit fucking sucks when it doesn't work. You know, me and Warren Buffett share the same birthday, and
You
here
do
I,
tweet like Warren Buffett stuff sometimes.
right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah.
You know, so we share the same birthday, and I want to do for the black community what Warren Buffett does, you know, for white people, you know, and other investors. But you know, he'll tell you he basically came up because he's a white guy and he was born to the parents that he was born to, and you know, our athletes. The black athletes have so much responsibility, you know, in making their capital productive, right? There's impact investing. You can get returns off of doing good,
Yeah.
right? You know, I've had people, you know, tell me, yeah, people care about impact, but they care about the returns a lot more. You know, that
You
that
kind of have
type
to have both if you
yeah,
want to get that
right,
involvement. Yeah.
right. That type of stuff is disheartening, but you know, I'm definitely on the mend.
That's good to hear.
Yes.
Haven't been home in 4 months. Been staying with my mother-in-law as I heal because the house is a trigger, right? You know, I have all of this work that I was working on, all of these different things, and we're clearing the house out spiritually. You know, and going through the stuff with Milk and Soul. I haven't been ready to go back home yet.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm looking forward to going back home in the next week or so. But it was an interesting journey for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
But I mean, really, thanks for sharing. It's obviously
course.
a
Yeah,
very difficult thing to go through, and I hope you know that you have a good support. It seems like a really good support system around you. And anyway, it's such a common problem now, and it seems you see people that seems like, wow, they have all these people around that love them and care for them, and their other people's lives would be so negatively impacted
Right.
if you weren't there. But it's just, I mean, it's just hard to grasp. But it's so common, it's something that's happening with people, and just this depression is just something that's really common right now. We see.
Right. It's part of the American fabric. It's the number one cause of death for kids under 13. You know.
Wow.
That's crazy.
You have players like Kevin Ellison, who took his life, which was
Yeah.
very unfortunate.
He was one of those guys that, I think I told Keely this too. Like, I loved talking football with him, and he would tell you. I'm like, how do you know if it's going to be a play action pass? I remember him telling me, like, watching the knuckles of like the offensive lineman. Like, he would get into that stuff with you, and he would, I thought he was a really sharp guy. He's a
Right.
South Bay guy too, and
Right,
then
right.
to hear him taking his life is just, it's just so unfortunate you hear that stuff.
Yeah, it was sad, and that messed me up, quite a bit. Because when you're in that dark place, you think about, what are people going to say about you at your funeral? How are people going to respond, to you taking your life and different things like that. And, it's not something to toy around with as a thought because it grows. But when you see one of your brothers take their life, you realize how impactful it is to, people around you. And I think whether it's fans, whether it's the university, whether it's former teammates, I think that everybody can do a better job keeping in touch and, giving people opportunities, post-football, to excel and to have meaning in life. And, I I'm sad that, I've been that sad to, want to take my life. And, I don't like the fact that it's even a possibility in my mind that I think that, hey, it's okay if I kill myself, I love my mom, my nephew, my brother, my wife, my daughter, all of that stuff. And it's just something that I have to fight through. And, with the support, the encouragement, different things like that, it helps. But it's also being able to live a life of purpose. I come from Inglewood, the Human Development Index, not a lot of people know about that, right? It's the quality of life that you're able to have. San Marino has a 9.3, where Inglewood has like a 4.22. Sure. And so the opportunities that you get based off of your zip code, it says a lot. Everybody says that your zip code shouldn't define your opportunities, but sadly it does.
Yeah.
Once I retired from football, because I wasn't all pro, Pro Bowl, a Hall of Fame player, I'm just now another black guy, who plays sports, and people don't take me serious. Trying to get the respect from, certain people, that's hard, because all they see is the football player. And I think, some of that stuff is what drive people mad.
Wow. Yeah.
You mentioned, I think logically, for players and professional players specifically, logically we know it's going to be tough to transition if you've been playing football your whole life to go basically into the real world. Do you think there needs to be more talk and more support maybe within players or just fans in general to support players who transition out of football? Do you think that needs to be talked about more so that you guys have more of a cushion when you come out?
Yeah, I think that the whole system needs to change. It starts in Pop Warner, right, where kids are starting to get identified as top players. Now they have Instagram accounts, different things like that.
Like 8-year-olds do.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So their whole identity is based around this one skill set that they have.
Yeah.
They don't tap into other skill sets. And as much as they say that, guys are, getting an education and stuff like that, like I told Lance Swan, I saw the graduation rates for the black males on the football team, and it sucks. You know what I mean? It's not.
It was bad.
Yeah, it's not great. So you can sit here and say what you want, but I'm concerned about the graduation rate of the black kids. They're coming from my community and other communities, and y'all have them at SC, and y'all using them for football. Yeah, it's a capitalistic system. They want to go to the league, the coaches want to win, all of that stuff, but I think we have to have a responsibility, to our kids. I remember they didn't want me to major in philosophy.
Because it would be too demanding.
They thought it would be too demanding and all of that stuff. And I ended up not being able to major in it because the upper division classes were offered doing football hours, 4:30 to 6:30, spring and fall. And so I switched to sociology, which I love because it's the foundation of my work now. But I asked them, I said, yo, can I come back to school and finish my philosophy degree because that's what I set out?
Yeah.
Because I had graduated, they said no.
So oh, really?
Yeah.
So, but if you hadn't graduated, you could come back.
If I hadn't graduated, I could come back and get my philosophy degree.
That seems strange.
Yeah,
Odd.
but I graduated in something that ideally I didn't want to take, but I had to take so I can play football. What I wanted to do, I wasn't able to do. I personally think that I should get a scholarship to go to grad school. You know,
Makes sense to me.
But it doesn't really work like that.
Yeah, you can try to pretend make a fake profile that you're a rower on you're a crew player,
Right?
Or something.
Right.
Oh, gosh.
Sorry.
We had a question. People have been hearing you talk about players and recruiting and whatnot, and they think you're very good at it. They wondered if, one, you would ever be a coach, and two, would you ever be a part of USC's recruiting staff?
I'd love to be a part of USC's recruiting staff. I personally think that there's a lot of opportunity for me to get closer, to the program. Unfortunately, you see guys like Clay Matthews, Mark Sanchez, different, figureheads that have gone on to do various things. But when it comes to, celebrating players who actually played well for the team, I don't think, the football program does a great job at that in a sense, at least in years past. Clay Helton does a wonderful job of keeping the
Like
open door.
welcoming you guys back and stuff.
Yeah, welcoming us back, and I'm a mentor in the class, Foundations of Self. Every was it the first semester or second semester of every year, so I get a chance to talk to some of the freshman football players and freshman basketball players. But I love to be a part of the USC community on a deeper level. I live 10 minutes away from the school.
Yeah.
I tell them anything you need, call me. I want to give back not only to the players, but to the university. It's not about the opportunity that I had in the NFL that I'm thankful for. It's the opportunity in life that I have from having gone to USC, right? There's people who I'm able to reach out to and connect with and contact through USC that I wouldn't be able to otherwise, and so finding ways to give back, whether it's recruiting, whether it's a role with, ongoing player development where, you have somebody who's giving the kids the real, letting them know like, hey, this is a two-way street. They using you, you got to use them. A lot of players don't get that hard reality, and I think that having that would be great, and it would be a tremendous honor, for me. As far as coaching, I don't think I could coach at the college level. I can help out, from time to time.
Like on the sports staff, like an analyst or something, or
no, like I could,
or be like someone like a mentor,
a
kind of thing.
situational coach.
Okay,
I don't think that I can endure the long hours and the time away from my family.
It's a lot,
right?
yeah.
But when I retired from the NFL, I actually tried to get the head coaching job at Inglewood. And
I remember that.
Yeah, and I ended up not getting it. I had $250,000 that somebody was going to donate to rebuild the whole football program and all of that stuff, and it just didn't work out. But with the sports vision training, I see that as an opportunity to help a ton of athletes.
Yeah.
Enhance their performance, reduce their injury rate. Where you talk about Kevin Ellison and him passing away. The NCAA has a paper on mental health, right, where concussions, injuries, performance drop off, not making it how you want to, different things like that affect, your mental health. And the fact that a lot of these players are coming from, urban environments, they're already coming in with trauma, and so when you get injured or where you don't perform well, a lot of the things that were masked become unmasked, and you deal with stuff that you never thought you were, dealing with because you've been inside this bubble. And I think that, the reality of football is a gruesome sport. It takes a lot out of you because you have to put 100% in, to get out what you need to get out. So as much as I was a football player, I was a student. I found a way not to sacrifice school. You know what I mean? But for a lot of people, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't go to USC to play football. I went to school at USC and I played football.
Yeah. Which is
of
not
people,
always the case.
not always the case. So.
In that sense, do you feel like there's enough support for students student athletes when they come in and they're playing like professionals, as he said, but they also have to be students. They have emotional stuff going on. Do you feel like there's enough support system for students?
I think that, they have a great psychologist. Her name is Robin. I've talked to her. I've worked with her on a program with, the mental state of injured players and making sure they stay in it and stuff like that. I think the biggest thing is that guys aren't willing and open to talk about the troubles, that they're going through, which is one of the reasons why I'm open with my battle with depression and suicide and things like that.
Well, it's like a tough guy thing, right? So you
Yes.
can't
Yeah.
admit
Right.
that there's something wrong.
Right. And I like to tell players, I say, look, man, I went first round, made millions of dollars, graduated, did everything you're supposed to do. But stuff is still hard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm still unable to get certain things that, I want to get done, done. But, they have, a ton of support if guys reach out. It's just letting guys know it's okay to reach out. Like, you're human. You're a football player, but you're not a gladiator. You know what I mean? Like, you're a human first.
Right.
You know, and this is the 21st century. We don't need all of these pseudo tough guys running around, suppressing these feelings and, doing dangerous coping mechanisms and things like that. It's much easier, to get help and free yourself, from that mental anguish. But again, the players have to be willing, to reach out. And a lot of it is you don't want to be seen as somebody who can't handle, your emotions, right? You don't know, well, obviously with HIPAA, they can't really say anything
Right.
to teams about, anything like that. But, I just think that the stigma of being a football player and a tough guy is outdated. We're humans. A lot of us are compassionate, big teddy bears and things like that. We go through ups and downs and disappointments like everybody else. And, being ushered into an area of life where people put you on a pedestal, that in and of itself comes with its own problems. And I think a lot of guys aren't ready for that.
And you're up there, and then it's gone. And
It's
then
gone.
you just, So if you're used to just being up on this
Yeah.
pedestal all the time, too, that can't be a great feeling.
Exactly. Not at all.
Yeah.
On a lighter note, Dominique Wise wants me to ask you about the USC football group chat. I don't know what about it. He just wants me to ask
Dominique
you.
Wise, yeah.
So let me tell you about Dominique Wise. He's the Don King of our time, and he does a great job of trying to get everybody together. I think one of the biggest things that alluding to what he's talking about, as alumni and graduates of USC and players who played at one of the most dominant times in USC football era, collectively we're not doing enough to leverage the influence that we have at the school with alumni, different things like that. You have a bunch of guys who are trying to get things off the ground, trying to make connections, different things like that. And they started a group chat, trying to figure out what everybody was doing. But it turns into locker room banter. So you got guys who are in there that's not serious and stuff like that. And it's like, for me, I got real money on the line. Like, I'm really trying to do stuff and trying to be, an example to the youth. You don't have to be a LeBron James or a Michael Jordan, to give back. And so, I'm definitely always open, to share my contacts and resources, at USC with the guys. But it's also one of those things where, each player has their own capabilities of reaching back. A lot of the stuff is the seeds that you planted while you were still there. Fortunately, I have a great reputation. People know me as a philosopher, student of the game, spokesman for the team, all of that stuff. So and then I get respect from people in their professional field outside of being a football player, right? So you and I, we have a level of respect for each other outside of everything, right? Sure. And, with teachers, with faculty and stuff like that, every player doesn't get that opportunity because they didn't have that forethought, to make that impression. And so, I know for sure that, the alumni needs to do a better job, of finding a way to give back to, former players and all of that stuff. It's like, look, I walk around on campus. I'm no fool, right? All of the new buildings, all of that stuff that they have going on came from donations they got from when we was winning and after that, right? And so
I think it's a fair point, yeah.
Right, I've talked to, several people in the athletic department, and I told them, I said, look, when y'all recruited me, y'all sat in my living room and y'all promised me in front of my parents that if I go to SC, get a degree, and win a national championship, I'll be good for life. Where's that at?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I want to hold them accountable, to that, as, do a lot of other people. But, if you're not certain guys, you're not connected with certain people, it's just a bunch of games and a bunch of BS. I think that, there's no program for former athletes. I know so much that I can't say on air.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
About, some of the workings with the university. But I think they can do a way better job of connecting with former players, especially the alumni. I had a tweet a while ago where I said, wondering what it means to be a Trojan for life. The fact that, like, I could reach out to Lloyd Greif, whose namesake is on the, School of Entrepreneurship, is one thing, right? But, to not really get any progress, from talking to him, like, yo, I'm trying to raise money for this. You might not believe in it, but do you have, like, some of your colleagues, some
Sure,
of your
that
friends?
someone will, yeah.
Yeah, and so it just gets to a point where you feel like you're bugging people and stuff like that. So in that regard, I think the university could do a lot better to help, former players. We deserve it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I played 52 games. You know what I mean? Like, I made key plays.
Yeah.
I like to tell people, you remember that game Reggie Bush had versus UCLA in 2005? Well, we got co-player of the game. Yeah. And even with the Fresno State game where he puts the ball behind his back, I got a critical sack cost fumble.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? That changed the tide of the game. So I definitely feel like I did everything right. I went to class. I was a good student, graduated in 4 years, never got in trouble, was a primetime player. But, it doesn't work how they say it was going to work. So,
Do you get involved with the Trojan football alumni group? Because I know it's been, and I'm actually, they have a golf tournament coming up on June 14th. I helped them promote a little bit, but I'm going to play in that. I don't know if you golf or anything, but how is that? I mean, it seems like it's not. It seems like a little bit fragmented. Like, I think they're trying to do good things, but I don't know.
It's fragmented. And it's a lot of older guys.
Okay,
you
yeah.
know what I mean. And it's
then
just
someone like you stepping in and like doing stuff.
Yeah, we. What Dominique Wise is alluding to is we're trying to, with our generation of players, trying to tap into the USC network. And it's way too hard. It's way too difficult to find people who are willing to help, able to help. It's far too difficult to get in contact, with certain people, different things like that. It should be as easy as, hey, we're this group, let's talk to this person and figure it out. There's a lot of smart people at USC, and I've had to, do Google searches and search the USC directory and different departments and find people and get their email and put former, USC football player in the subject on the email just to get,
Just like, oh, okay,
right,
yeah.
So it's just very difficult to reach out and, get certain things. And not to say that it's not available, because there is help available, right? Sometimes it's not the help that we want or the help that we need, but, there's stuff out there, but, it can be done a lot better.
Alrighty, we're reaching an hour and a half
Yeah,
show.
we should probably
wrap it up. But thank you so much for coming on the show. I think this was definitely an important conversation to have, and it takes strength to talk about what you talked about. So we really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story and whatnot.
Of course.
Any final thoughts you want to add? I know people were asking for you. You have great stories. Any final stories you want to share with us before we wrap it up? And I'm putting you on the spot.
We don't
sorry.
have to. I mean, it's
one story, I guess I've never talked about this publicly.
Ooh, all right. Wow. Okay. I'm a little scared, but I'm also excited.
Yeah.
It's kind of embarrassing if you don't have a sense of humor.
Okay.
But so the first game, I'm super amped up, right?
Virginia Tech.
Okay. And so I'm also nervous at the same time. So I got the bubble guts, right? And so I see Coach O running to give me a chest bump. And so he knocked out the fart that I was holding in, and I sharted a little bit before the game, right? So the whole warm-up, I'm wondering, like, dude, did I boo-boo on myself? And so we go back into the locker room.
This conversation's gone.
We've been on both spectrums now.
Like a whole bunch of
I
stuff.
got my gloves taped up on the outside, everything. Coach Carroll is giving the talk. Here I am in the bathroom trying to figure out what happened. So that's probably the most embarrassing thing, that
It wouldn't be easy to change your pants at that point, right?
No. It's kind of like you're stuck.
You're done, yeah.
Oh, man. Wow. Now, that was a story. That was definitely a story. Wow. Already.
Way to go, Keely, on that one. Yeah. So you haven't told that one before?
I haven't told that to
Nice.
anybody in
Wow.
the public sphere. So yeah.
Now it's live for everyone to hear.
Yeah, now you all know that I sharded at my first game. It was my birthday present to myself.
Oh, was your birthday, your first game?
August 30th. I don't remember. What day was the game?
I don't remember this.
Yeah, I want to say it was close to August. Oh, I do have another interesting story from that game.
Okay.
So I'm very sentimental. Keep a lot of stuff, and I have to show you. I don't know if you've seen the book that I got done that chronicled my football career, but it has from all the games that I played. It has all the stories, different things. It's a book probably about this big.
Like from Inglewood all the way through, or
Inglewood all the way to USC. They have one in the sports info office. So if you go in there, you'll see it. I gifted them one. So my first game, I called myself taking some grass from the field. Right. So I put it in a little baggie. And so I'm walking inside the hotel, and I must have reached into my pocket to grab my hotel key. And so the grass fell out. And so some alumni, he picks it up, and he comes over, and he goes, "Hey, man, you dropped something," right? And he thinks it's weed. But I'm like, "No, man, it's just grass from the field."
He's like, "Sure."
Right. But it literally
Your
looked like
secret's safe with me.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, dude, no, I'm just trying to keep this. But that was definitely, funny, but there's a lot of great things. Like I still have my playbook from the first time I played Notre Dame.
Oh, cool.
Still have like some of my grade sheets from some of the games. I keep a lot of mementos and stuff like that, but I'm very happy to be, a Trojan, very happy to have come on the show. Would love to come back.
Yeah, we'd love to have you.
Definitely don't mind spending time with you all. This is, pretty fun.
Yeah.
The FCC can't get involved.
No, you're safe from them. You're safe from them.
I think you might have dropped our first F-bomb on Tunnel Vision, right?
Was there an F-bomb? I didn't even catch that.
There was a quick one in there. Yeah. I might have, on the podcast, we've especially on my podcast of Champions, we've said some bad words, but it's like. I don't think on Tunnel Vision we've done a lot of that, so that's good.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, it's been all over the place.
Of course.
And we love the football talk, and we love having you here. And obviously, we had some fun moments, and there was some real serious ones. So I mean, I know the USC fans out there support you.
Yeah, we got a lot of comments during the show that people have your back and they're rooting for you. So always know that too.
And I'd like to take a second to thank everybody, not only for participating in the show, for listening, but also the USC people who tweeted me, from my statements that I made online, the people who are commenting now, and understanding my story. I appreciate that. One thing that I would say is, be kind to everybody that you know, because everybody is fighting a battle that you can't see.
Yeah.
A smile goes a long way. There's times where, I was literally a ghost, walking like a zombie, thinking about killing myself, in the middle of a grocery store. But, somebody would smile at me, and it's like, okay, you matter, what I mean?
Yeah.
So you never know, how far a hello, a smile, or anything like that can go. And, the signs of suicide, suicidal thoughts are there. If you know people who are struggling or depressed, reach out to them. If there's friends that you haven't talked to in a while, give them a call, shoot them a text. It doesn't have to be long. I just had a conversation with one of the guys that was in my wedding on the way up here. We talked for almost an hour. He was devastated that I told him that I almost killed myself, And so, it's things like that. Reach out to people, spend time with your parents, spend time with your friends, tell people you love them. Don't hold back. This is, life. We only have one life to live, and tomorrow's not guaranteed. So you don't want to go to sleep tonight, leaving anything left on the table, waiting for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Well said.
Great words to end on. So we're going to wrap it up there. Thank you again, Lawrence, for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. That's Ryan. That's Lawrence. I'm Keely. We're here Wednesdays, 6 p.m., so make sure you tune in next week, and we'll see you guys then. Bye.
See ya. Thanks.
Bye. Fight on.